Hello, everyone. It's the Illuminati religion. The religion to try to bring about world peace, and get people to heaven, and make this world closer to a utopia. Because the better people behave, the better society is. That's the true foundation of a society. Good behavior, humane behavior. People looking out for one another, helping each other. Not trying to oppress and work each other super cheap for money. So I'm going to read a sermon, The Fall of America and the European Union Make Capitalist Sense. Forget all the complicated nonsense you hear on television about how they're going to save the American economy and the European Union. In capitalism, it makes absolute sense to loot these two countries for all the wealth they can be looted for and leave the people for dead or as good cheap labor. And if you don't think this is the way ungodly business and political leaders on the payroll think, then I must say you're sadly naive. If you think they care about what's good for humanity and easing human suffering over profits and material wealth, then you are sadly naive. Most ungodly people in general, especially leaders with money and power, which only intensifies their ungodly, inhumane behavior, only think in terms of more profits, power, and material gain, not in terms of saving human lives. And yeah, I know they may do a slight amount of charity, but compared to what they have, I don't believe most of them do much or do it for God. Many of them make their money through sin, evil, and oppress labor, and then do just a little charity. Their motivations are selfish, just like most ungodly people. Let's face it, most people, even if they're in the church, don't value what Jesus did or act like Jesus. They value and do just the opposite. Just like the owners of the company I work for told me, this is not a utopia. And he's right, because most people don't follow God and behave in a way to make it a utopia. And from past experience, it seems most don't desire to. And I hope that changes, but we'll see. Just like the owners of the company I work for don't, with their unsafe working conditions and low pay. And then they're insulted because the guys want a union, but it was their ungodly behavior that brought the union on themselves. Now, as a man of God, I desire to fight oppression and all ungodly evil and make this world a utopia, because that's what people that are valuable to God and truly valuable to this world do. Now, you'll agree, unless you like someone who makes you suffer. So turn to God and worship Him and not money, and sin and do what's right in His eyes. Otherwise, you're saying it's okay for others to suffer. So you're saying it's okay for you to suffer. Now, there's a reason businesses are always trying to break unions and find cheap labor and bring the wages of workers down as much as possible, forcing them into deeper servitude on a job. Within the United States or any country, it's because the goal of business and capitalism is to make as much profit as possible. It's an ideology that's not concerned with the welfare of people. And with globalization, a technology, they're just doing it on a larger, deeper scale. Now, if I put on my greedy capitalist thinking cap for a minute and ask myself, what would I do if I could make tons of money, control many people, and control tons of land and natural resources? My answer comes out the same. It's find cheap labor overseas that I have to pay nothing to, and sell those products and services in a society where people have a lot of money to buy them, so I can charge a high price. So I spend nothing to make my products, and I charge a high price at the time of sale. Now, simple mathematics say eventually I will loot the wealthy middle class society of its money. They have no money coming in terms of income, and they're constantly spending money on my products. So eventually I will control the wealth, the land, and the people in both societies, and I will hire my evil brown-nosing whores for money and keep them on the payroll to oppress the people and protect me. Now think about this. Isn't this how ungodly societies work all over the world? Yes, this is exactly how they work. But eventually it will happen globally if people don't turn to God. And what usually happens is a leader puts people on a payroll. They kind of live pretty good, so they don't really care about their oppressed brothers. And either militarily or through force, if there's an uprising, they crush the people. Or they'll imprison the people. And you've seen this happen to every revolutionary leaders. Always. People that speak up for justice for the oppressed are thrown in jail, persecuted, and what have you. And Jesus was persecuted for challenging the power structure. You know, if you truly understand the Bible, that's what Jesus was persecuted for, because he stood up against the corrupt power structure of the time. So this is nothing new. Now this is the reason why the Lord has me writing this Bible. It's not for you to always be looking for money miracles and material miracles. And yes, I know God can do miracles, but most of the time he does humanitarian miracles. Jesus did humanitarian miracles, not miracles to give people their selfish, greedy, irrational wants. God wants humble obedience to him and his word by the people. He wants people to behave in the right way according to his word, so that things like these economic and social problems we have in this world won't happen. Because as a man of God and not a greedy capitalist, I would never want to exploit cheap labor or loot a society of all its wealth, leaving this a society impoverished. A society falls due to the ungodly behavior, due to its ungodly behavior. That's why what people do to ease human suffering is what makes them important. Not how many earthly riches they can hoard while others suffer. Why would I value people that hoard tons of wealth, deny me any opportunities for a middle-class life, and force me to work hard for little so they can live lavish and hoard tons of wealth off my suffering? I would be stupid to do that. That's why Jesus said, store your riches in heaven, and do that by bettering humanity and easing the suffering of others in the name of God. And that's more important than earthly riches. America and the European Union had the strongest middle classes in the world. The wealth was spread out amongst most people. They had the highest paid workers, largely due to the socialist nature of these countries. They had decent labor law and labor unions, which is why they had a rich consumer base that could be looted to begin with. Other countries like Mexico, Taiwan, Korea had a pool of people that didn't know our wage scales, had little development, little industry, and were countries that were forced to look for a means of making money in this world economy. They were looking for jobs in this world where the banks had put countries into debt, forcing people to pay taxes or starve, which is part of the global financial hustle that the Illuminati with an A, which is the Illuminati I speak of, the one humane truth under God religion, must be against and trying to break down. These people were ripe candidates to be exploited as cheap labor in this global economy, just like rural parts of America where unemployment was high and was largely undeveloped were ripe for cheap labor 20 or 30 years ago. Only these other countries could be forced to work super cheap because governments or elite landowners that control too much land and wealth had forced workers into poverty already, usually on an agricultural basis. So now that we're looking at what are we looking at? We are looking at corrupt, greedy government people and greedy, corrupt capitalist landowners. They are basically society's business owners. Mind you, these countries are undeveloped and much more agriculture, but the people there still have the same ungodly behavior. These people still have the mentality, crush and exploit into as deep servitude as you can, whoever is weaker than you on the social scale and deny them any opportunity to have a share of the wealth as much as possible. Always remember, a society does not come down to social philosophies or economic philosophies. It comes down to how godly, sinless, and humane the people in a society want to behave. That's the ultimate foundation of a society. Now, ungodly American and European Union people, not caring about their oppressed brothers and sisters in these countries, many thinking those poor people without opportunity should be cheap labor, being they think according to the ungodly world social scale, thinking of nothing more than the products they were getting at a good price, got suckered into consuming all of this stuff like fish running to take bait on the hook that makes them dinner. That thinking and also these people just wanting to watch their Wall Street investments grow, their IRAs, 401ks, etc. grow, and never caring about the suffering of their brothers and sisters in other countries. Now they're simply becoming that cheap labor they wanted to support. And I will tell you right out, I was guilty of this prior to me turning to God. I just had no knowledge and didn't pay attention. So we have to be more humane. I'm going to continue the rest of the sermon in another video.